It wasn't the regular season they had hoped for, but it's this mentality that will get Baylor to hunt down a date with Duke on Sunday after dispatching Mississippi State.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network on YouTube. It is Wednesday, Wicker Wednesday, with Sydney Wicker of Channel 6, KCEN. It's the tournament Wicker Wednesday. Maybe the only tournament Wicker Wednesday. I hope not.
I hope not.
We've got to talk about these first round matchups against a team that Sydney was once familiar with, as the men take on Mississippi State. The ladies take on Grand Canyon. We'll talk about the big boost that they are going to get as they head into that first game at the Foster Pavilion. And Baylor football out here making some hires, making the community proud. We'll tell you why that's a brilliant move for Baylor and the greater Waco area. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Sydney Wicker, Channel 6, KCEN, formerly of Mississippi, covering teams in Mississippi. Mostly Ole Miss, though, right?
No, mostly Mississippi State.
Really? Okay, I was going to say the way around.
Yeah, I did a little bit of Ole Miss was probably like my third team I did the most. It was mostly Mississippi State and Alabama were my big ones. The only reason Ole Miss was a little farther for me was because it was a 3-hour drive instead of an hour and a half.
Yeah, because Oxford's like nowhere. It's not near anything.
It's like super north, basically almost in Memphis. Like you're like at the top of Mississippi right there.
It makes the blind side make a lot more sense.
It does.
The rest of it might not make sense in real life after what we've heard later, but that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the NCAA tournament, Baylor taking on Mississippi State. And I do find it interesting what this buildup has to be like for the Bears. You know, they've been kind of hanging on for their tournament lives, but not exactly. Like they were in the picture the whole time. They kind of flirted with dropping out of the field. And here they are as a 9 seed taking on an SEC team. And I do wonder, Sydney, like we talked about it last week from the women's standpoint of losing 2 big championship games and then going into the tournament. But here's a men's team that didn't have the luxury of championship games, right? They have fallen short of expectations this whole year. And now you got to turn around and say, season's on the line, 1 loss and you're done. I wonder how much the veterans in that room can kind of rally this team. This is what they were brought here for, right?
Yeah, it's tough because on paper, I think we're all just kind of like, okay, at least they made the tournament. Like,
right. Yeah.
Exciting.
No expectations. Yeah.
But from the team's perspective, something that Scott Drew has said repetitively is that he just doesn't feel like his team has played their best basketball yet. And he thinks it's starting right now. He thinks they've played so much better in the month of March and over the last couple weeks. I mean, to play the way they did against Tech, that was a really good game. And they had a shot till the very end. So it's good to see that there has been progression in this team, but I think not having some of those big wins does hurt in this stretch. You want to have those big wins under your belt. You want to have that experience. So I think the veterans, the guys like Norchad are definitely, their voices are needed right now in those rooms. They don't want this to be the end for them. Jeremy Roach talked a lot about how this is it for him too. So he wants to make the most of it. They never want their last game to be a loss. So if there's any time to turn it on, it's right now.
And you mentioned the 2 names, right? Norchad Omier, Jeremy Roach, both guys who have played in the Final Four. Like, this is why they're here. And Norchad's been great. It's been a disappointing season for Jeremy Roach, but like this is a new season. And Roach went to the podium yesterday and talked about the mentality that this team has to have in order to advance in this tournament.
I mean, we're definitely still the hunters, but I think we're more of the hunters now. Just seeing everything that we've been through this year, everybody writing us off and stuff like that coming to the tournament. So we definitely got that hunter's mentality and trying to just go out and take every win. And that's really the motivation. It's not really. I feel like we're not really the hunters right now. We're more of the hunters. So just coming and being the aggressors and setting the tone early.
So Baylor has been one of the most successful basketball programs the last 5 years, including a national championship in there, more wins than everyone, but I think UConn maybe, who themselves have been pretty successful too. And now here they are. They're a 9 seed. They're an underdog in round 1, and nobody's given them a shot in hell in round 2 if they make it there against Duke. So is this kind of the perfect opportunity for a program that has not been an underdog very much the last 5 years to kind of take a load off and say, you know what, guys, we're playing with house money here. No one expects us to win. Do you think that's a good place for Baylor to be here?
I think so. I mean, if nobody picks you to win, you already have nothing to lose, right?
I guess, yeah.
Like, you don't have a target on your back. You're not the team that you're not the number 1 seed. You're not Duke. You don't have to be worried. You don't have
Mhm.
to, like, you don't have that expectation. You're not carrying that. So, I like how Scott Drew has talked a lot about how it's time to go hunting. We have always
Totally.
been the ones that have the target on our back. People wanna take us down, but it's our turn to switch the roles here. So, it's a good mentality to lock into, and I think this team, this is the perfect time for them to do it, and like you said, if there's no better time than right now. There's
Mm,
nothing left to hold back, like, your season's over if you hold anything back. So, show them that you can hang around with an SEC team, one that's very similar to you in so many
yep.
ways.
And to take it a step further with this team, I've seen it from afar. I know you've been up close with this team and you've been to a lot of these press conferences too. But I think it's fair to say this team has felt uptight a lot of the year. And that's what happens when you're a preseason top 10 and you don't live up to it. You're playing tight. So, Scott Drew talks about they've been playing better, and that's true. They have been playing better the last couple of games, last week or two. But this might allow them to play the freest they have all year. Am I reading too much into that?
No, I mean, seriously, there's nothing to lose other than the
Yeah.
game itself, and you're already not expected to win it. So, like, if you lose, then whatever. Like, there's really not a lot of pressure on your back other than, do you want to make a statement and end your career this way on a loss in round 1, or do you want to make a run and make a statement?
So in a way, like this is I said I would talk myself into this last week. I remember I told you I talked myself into them making like an Elite 8 run. But like if you're taking, which we all do as sports fans, if you're taking that kind of intangible stuff, that feels good. A team that's playing fast and loose and a little bit free, that does have the talent and experience that have gotten there. Like they have the talent still. And they do have those two guys who have played in the Final Four. They have a head coach with a national championship ring. Like there is a lot to be kind of optimistic about in terms of, being a Cinderella team. Nobody's saying this is a Final Four team or anything, but if you're like, hey, why not? Baylor's going to make a run. Those are the things you can look at. And honestly, if they're able to put a hurting on Mississippi State, which is asking a lot, I think they'll win. But if they handle them in a 9-8 matchup, then that's a quick turnaround with a lot of confidence going against a team like Duke. So I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's a long way off. But see, this is me talking myself into it a little bit. Talking
I
myself into
will I will say too, I feel like when Baylor's needed to win in moments, there's been times where they've done it. Like that K-State game to start off the Big 12 tournament, they kind of needed to really
it. Hmm.
win that one. And so I think in moments like that where they've like had no choice, their backs have kind of been against the wall, I think they've gotten the job done. And so if that's how they feel going into this one, I think the stats say, well, they'll get it done.
Yeah. TCU the week before that too, in the penultimate game of the regular season, even the second game of the season, they got blown out by 40 in game 1. And it's like, well, you're not going to start 0-2. Baylor doesn't start 0-2. And they took a team that was in the top 20 at the time in Arkansas and kind of kept them at its arm's length for most of the game and won that game. So it's a good point. Women's basketball, they've won a lot of games this year. They haven't won the big ones yet, and they might be paying the price for it with their first round matchup. That said, there is a big boost coming their way. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. It gives your business flexibility by connecting with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including AI, web development, and marketing, things that you don't think about until you start running the business. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Posting a job is free and it's simple. And within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business, not tomorrow, but today. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Fabric by Gerber Life. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching the kids take their first steps, and before you know it, you're dropping them off at college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. So protecting your loved ones does not have to break the bank. Fabric also offers digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health conditions. So just after you're done with the men's game on Friday, it's time to tune into the women's game. Men's at 11:15. You'll get enough time to watch it, catch the Locked On Baylor post game, and then we're right into the 2:15, 2:30 women's game at home at the Foster Pavilion against the Lopes of Grand Canyon. Sydney Wicker of Channel 6 joins us on this Locked On Baylor. We'll talk about GCU in a minute, but we kind of touched on it a little bit last week. Baylor, in their 2 championship games they lost 2 weeks in a row to TCU, they were missing a big part of their team, Dariana Littlepage Buggs. Well, the memo went out, Michael Jordan style. She is back for this team formerly known as the Lady Bears. I know you're trying to kind of ease someone in round 1 who hasn't played in a while, but Sydney, it's tough to understate how big a deal this is for this team to get Buggs back.
It's so huge, and what better time than right now? Dariana Littlepage Buggs, her presence is known the second she steps foot on that court, and I also think so much of the team is just better with her presence there. Watching her on the court side the last couple weeks and just being a cheerleader for her team,
yeah.
She's been one of the loudest cheerleaders. Her energy is electric on that bench. Like, she has not missed a beat with this team. Although she hasn't been able to be out there physically, she's done her part. And I think you saw a lot of that in their 9-game win streak that they were able to produce. And, it sucks that they haven't gotten over the hurdle of those big games. We talked about how much of a key player she can be in those big environments and how needed she is. And I just think she makes those around her such better players. I love talking about the duo that is Buggs and Bella, because they seem to just be, they're so good. And I think Bella is so much better when she has Buggs there, when it's not all on her back. Obviously, we've seen Nettie take such a big step and be so dominant, but having just that extra person and a leader and somebody who can get to the net like Buggs, I think that makes all the difference.
And the bottom line is, there's not many teams in the country that are adding an all-conference player at this point in the year. They haven't had the last couple of weeks. And that's what Buggs is bringing you, right? 14 points a game, 10.5 rebounds. She shoots 54% from the floor. And what were kind of the themes of the TCU games to end the season? Were they didn't get those timely rebounds and they missed a lot of layups. Here's someone who makes up for both of those things in her sleep. It's just a day at the office to do that. So to add that to your lineup right as March Madness hits, that's huge for Nikki Collins' team, for a team that I think we both talked about ad nauseum, has the talent. And it stinks that, you have some injuries in a key time of the year. You lose some big games. A 3 seed for this team probably would have been a lot different than a 4 seed, and avoiding a 1 seed in the Sweet 16 if they get there. But that, to me, is a huge boost that's coming their way. A boost that they didn't necessarily get was getting Grand Canyon in the draw. I went in on that big time yesterday. The Lopes of Grand Canyon, led by Molly Miller, who was in the running for Nikki Collins' job when Nikki got it a few years ago. The Lopes started 2-2. They are now 32-2. There's never been a hotter 13 seed in any basketball ever, winning 30 straight games and coming into your building. Sydney, I know it's not the same competition that Baylor's played, but that has to count for something, right? Like, this is a team that's very confident coming into Foster Pavilion.
100%. I mean, it doesn't really matter what conference you're in or whatever. That's a
30
really
straight's
hard
30
thing to
straight.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And you're talking about in their conference championship, they even had a close game against UT Arlington where they were able to pull it out by 2-3 points.
Yep.
So they've won close games, they've battled, and they've still kept their win streak going. So they're a tough 13 seed and definitely not one to overlook. I do still like Baylor in this matchup. I like Baylor at home a lot. Those girls just want to win. Somebody like Sarah Andrews, who something I've asked this team a lot about, especially the seniors on this team, is the last time you guys were on the court, you were ready to see that confetti fall. And you weren't guaranteed another game back at home. To get to rewrite how that last game went, what do you want to produce while you're here? And Sarah Andrews is a girl who carries that chip on her back. I love her swagger that she brings to this team. And although we haven't necessarily seen her numbers jump off the stat sheet this season, she is somebody who's going to bring that grittiness that's needed and to help with this team. And she's not somebody who wants to lose. So it's going to be a good one.
And she was one that she was thinking, that's my last home game.
Yeah.
When they lost that. And I think Sarah Andrews has been a big part of this team as well. Last year she was in a shooting slump for so much of the season that never really got corrected. And it was a detriment. It was a distraction. It was a detriment to the team. And, not her fault. She was playing hard, but it ended up really, I think, hurting the team. And this year, you said it, the stats aren't jumping off the page, but she's more efficient. She's more vocal. She's making the right plays, which I think she was pressing a lot at the end of last year and wasn't making the right plays. And now she is. And now that they're going to need that for this matchup against Grand Canyon and possibly another home game after that against Ole Miss, the 5 seed Ole Miss. Do you have any concerns about how this Ole Miss team plays in March that might be an issue for the Bears here?
Oh yeah, just covering Ole Miss a little bit. I didn't get to cover them as much with I got to cover Coach Yo a little bit, but just I know you don't like my SEC bias sometimes.
I don't, yeah.
It's there for
Sydney's
a
like, there
reason.
should have been 15 men's teams in the tournament. Yeah, I heard you say that before the show.
No, I think it's next level, and they thinking about how Mississippi State and Ole Miss, the two women's programs alone, compete and how they've battled against each other this season. Ooh, it makes me a little nervous for sure. Ole Miss is just such a sound group. I think they kind of really come alive in March, and that's something we've seen from them over the last 2 years. I can't remember exactly how far they made it last year or the year before that, but I know they've made a couple runs, and that comes from Coach Yo. And if you ever listen to one of her press conferences or like her locker room stuff, man, she gets me hyped. I'm ready to be out of my chair. Like, I cannot shoot hoops, but I'm ready to try
No, I don't need that. I don't need that.
She does have a very contagious energy, but the Bears at home are also just so hard to beat. So that if they do play Ole Miss in round 2, that's going to be a tough one for sure. But that would be Baylor's chance to prove that they can win the big ones.
And we're going to have some great coaching on display. Just the 3 that you mentioned right there, right? Yo, Miller, and Collin this weekend at the Foster Pavilion. Man, I said it. Those of you traveling in from out of town, you get to Waco, early lunch, watch the men's game, Brazos Landing, Crickets, wherever you may be, right down the street for that awesome women's matchup at, what'd you say, 2:15? 2:30. 2:30. Yep. Dentist time. Gotcha. Baylor also does play football in the fall, and they are adding to their staff with one name that you might be familiar with as a local yokel, and why that's a big addition for the Baylor football staff. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. But not before I ask you this question. You ever check your bank account and wonder where the heck did all my money go? I do a lot. Sydney probably as well. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. Not that either of us do any of that stuff too much. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. It ain't like any other budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, you can track spending, and even plan for long-term goals. Also, if you want to collaborate with a partner, someone you're living with, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You could track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com/code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Doesn't get much better than that at monarchmoney.com. Just getting into the basketball postseason swing of things. Football seems like a long way away, although we're knocking on the door here of spring football. We're going to have
this weekend.
We're going to have a spring game / spring practice / spring walkthrough at some point here in the near future. Sydney's already getting ready for going straight from basketball into football and just waiting for June when there's a break until she has to cover the Aggies in the College World Series. So it's not coming for quite some time, Sydney. But the Baylor football staff is moving. We've seen it a lot actually in this fall for a team that was so successful this past year, and I don't think it was in a bad way. We've seen a good amount of moves. So on yesterday, no, that's not right. 2 days ago, Monday, I'm right in that. Monday, it was announced, then Baylor came out with it for sure on Tuesday, talking about their adding to their support staff. Connor Killian, Director of Football Strategy, Jaden Wells as Director of On-Campus Recruiting, and then for the Assistant Athletic Director for Football Relations, a name that those of you who are local might recognize, Kayron Johnson, of formerly the University High head football coach, obviously the football coach for London Smith, who's in the class of 2026, a big-time commitment from Baylor legacy, Devontre Kirkland, the defensive back that they are looking at as well, high up on his list. Kayron Johnson coached him as well. So this is why you bring in the local experts. Sydney Wicker covered the Trojans this year. Kayron Johnson turned around that program. I mean, they were horrid when I was in college and really up till a couple years ago. Like them and Waco High would combine for about a win each year in that stadium. And now they're a 5A playoff team, and Kayron Johnson goes to his alma mater and is now on the football staff at Baylor. Talk about a good local football guy here, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny because you talk about how university wasn't this good program. I mean,
they were horrible.
I've only been in Waco for not even a year yet, and to me, university's always been a great one because that's all I've seen. And maybe that's the Coach Johnson effect. I don't know, but he is just such a class act. I'm really happy for him in this hire at Baylor. It sucks for the local beats, of course, because we love talking to him post game and love seeing what he's done to that program. You mentioned guys like London Smith and the great talent that we've seen on his teams, but just what a great guy. I know he's got to be so happy to be back with the Bears, but and what a big move that is for them.
And by the way, kind of not like a throwaway no-show job.
No.
Assistant AD for football relations. So basically that is like in the front office of the football program. And so he's going to have a hand in recruiting here. And I think this could be a very interesting tool for Baylor because we talked about it with the Sensational Six. That was a month or two ago. And recruiting local. You know, they're doing well with DFW. Keenan Hall certainly helped a ton with that. And now you've got a local guy, 5A local guy, who played at one of the great Texas high school programs at Cuero. He's coached throughout a couple of these programs here. How important do you think that is for future recruiting, Sydney, to have a guy who was coached locally here, not for a terribly long time, but knows the players, knows the staffs, knows these programs? That's got to be a big advantage.
It's huge, and it's gonna be huge, like, right away because
Yeah.
he is well aware of the talent that's there right now, whether that's with university or the other teams that he's faced off against. Like, he's already familiar, he gets it right now, and I think from a coach's perspective, like, you see it so differently. So that plays such a key part. I know Coach Aranda has been so proud of what they've done locally and how they have dominated Central Texas in a good way, and this is only going to add to that and make that better. There are so many talented kids in this area, and Coach Johnson knows a lot of them that maybe I haven't even seen yet. So this is
Mm.
huge.
Yeah, and to by the way, Baylor teammate of Tyler Beatty, trying to spring head
Mhm.
coach as well. So there's all kinds of, and he played 4 years here at Baylor, and in the few times I got to talk to him, he was certainly big on his time at Baylor. Obviously, he was kind of a part of that turnaround under Art Briles. Played in their first bowl game in 16 years in 2010. That was part of the Alamo Bowl team, so a teammate of RG3 as well. So definitely fingerprints on the program when they were at their very best. And this is obviously not the first time that we've seen this in the Dave Aranda era. Speaking of China Spring, after Brian Bell led them to the state championship in 2021, he took on a job with Baylor up in the booth and did eventually leave with his brother Sean to go coach at UH. So this is something that Dave Aranda has tried before. Obviously, university a little bit bigger than China Spring, so maybe some bigger recruits to get tapped into. But I think this is going to be key for their local recruiting in the future, and that will only lead to good things. Sydney, I have one more question for you as we get
Okay,
out of
what's
here.
up? Sorry, I'm
So
trying to look up. I can't remember who the quarterback is for
RG3.
no, for university right now. I know RG3, you crazy.
I can't remember his name. Big
He's only
guy,
a
young guy.
sophomore.
Yeah, he was only
Yeah,
a sophomore.
and oh my god, I hate
Go
myself that I'm
Raw.
blanking his name right now. But that guy, I talked to his dad at a game, and this kid's already like, as a sophomore, was talking to Michigan and like some really big schools. He's pretty good quarterback. So I think when you have his head coach now going to Baylor, I wonder how those conversations switch.
That helps. It's
It
got
helps
to.
a lot, especially if you have a good relationship with him.
Of
I
course.
cannot find his name, and it's killing me right now. So if I think of it, I'll let you know.
Some
But
local is just screaming at their computer right now the name
I
of this
know, I'm
kid.
sorry, and I'm sorry I can't hear you. Please leave it in the comments, and I will give you the biggest apology
Hey,
in the world.
I did a play-by-play for one of their games this year, so I should know. That should be on me. But my last question for you, Sydney, is this.
Yeah.
It looks like there are going to be two teams in the round of 64 in the men's tournament that are going to be lower seeded favorites. Okay. Looks like we haven't gotten the full, line yet, but Baylor as a 9 seed over Mississippi State and the 12 seeded Colorado State Rams of Sydney Wicker fame, Sydney Wicker's alma mater. So she has a hand in both of this. So I'm going to ask you for a prediction on both games.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, go Rammies. I'm so proud of them. And head coach Nico Medved. I remember his introductory press conference when I was at Colorado State. I was there for it. He came in singing the Colorado State fight song. Like, it is a memory I'll never forget. So I'm so happy for them and that team. They had to win the Mountain West tournament to get to
Yeah.
where they are. So I'm
And now
rocking
they're
with the Rams.
favored.
Now they're favored.
As a
That
12.
Nick Clifford, he is unreal. I love watching him play for CSU. I haven't got to watch as many games of theirs as I would like because
You're
that's
busy.
what makes me the Baylor sports
Yeah.
reporter.
Yes, we couldn't have you on here if you were watching so many Colorado State games. So
Oh goodness. Thankfully though, they do tip off pretty late normally because they're on mountain time. So I usually get to catch the second half. So I'm rocking with the Rams for sure. Definitely making it at least to the second round. And with this Baylor game, I go back and forth. I really do. One day I'm leaning dogs, one day I'm leaning bears. So I know it sucks. Josh Hubbard is for real though, and I know it would
just
be
gotta
dark.
pick 'em.
I don't know. I would like for Baylor to win. I just don't know if they've done enough to win. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
think Mississippi State might have the advantage here. And if they do, and if the Aggies win on Thursday, then I'll be in Denver and then back in Waco on Sunday. So
They are booing you off the screen right now.
I know, I'm sorry, guys. I gotta keep it real though.
I'm with them, honestly. By the way,
I
this
get
is
it.
a
I
little
hope Baylor wins. I hope Baylor wins.
off topic to Baylor, but Colorado State has the secret sauce. Those of us of a certain vintage who remember the 2010 NCAA tournament will know Colorado State's most famous assistant coach, Ali Farouk-Manesh, the
Yeah.
Kansas killer from Northern Iowa. That when you get that guy on a bench in March, man, it's tough to beat. Sydney Wicker, KCEN Channel 6. She will be in Raleigh, so we might have to check in with her in Raleigh as she catches Baylor and Mississippi State. Sydney, thanks so much for joining once again.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Cam. It's always a pleasure. I'm sorry for disappointing you, but
Well,
someone's got to keep it real around here, Cam.
we all fall short and we're saved by grace, Anyway, that's Wicker Wednesday. We will have her back for sure next Wednesday, if not before. But Sydney, you can catch her at Sydney_Wicker. Check her out for the updates this week from Raleigh. Thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day. Be sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Ring that notification bell to know every time we're going live, because I have a feeling we're going to be doing it a couple times on Friday. And get involved in the comment section what you think about this Baylor game on Friday, men's and women's. Let me know your feelings heading in to the big dance, and we will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.